I call the honourable member Cam Calder.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. It's a pleasure to take a call on Part 3 of the Alcohol Law Reform Bill, a bill which is the first step in a pushback against increasing liberalisation of alcohol laws in decades. And I agree with my parliamentary colleague Lewis Wall that alcohol does have a toxic effect on much of our Manurewa community, and I can see real value in elements of Part 3 in helping to reduce the enormous harm that alcohol misuse does in our society and in our Manurewa community. It's believed, for instance, to contribute directly to 1,000 deaths a year. 1,000 deaths a year, a major cost of approximately $5 billion is estimated to be due to alcohol-related harms, and it is a known major driver of crime, alcohol being implicated in 30% of all police offences, 34% of all family violence and 50% of all homicides. This bill sets out to reduce those harms. One of the initiatives in Part 3 that I'm most excited about is about local communities being able to create their own local alcohol policies. As a List MP, I've chosen to base my office in the vibrant and diverse community of Manurewa. And one of the earliest gatherings I attended in the Manurewa electorate was a public meeting regarding concerns about yet another alcohol outlet opening, and I've heard from Lewis how many there are and the density thereof.
The member will use the member's full name or the title. I'm in the chair.
I've heard from the honourable member Lewis Wall. That's not a reflection on the chair. The number in our community. The Manurewa community are all too well aware of the harms related to alcohol misuse. They've been active in making their concerns known with respect to possible solutions. And in my two surveys of the electorate, the overwhelming majority of respondents to those surveys were in favour of a purchase age of 20 years at both on and off licences. The Manurewa Youth Council have been actively involved, as the honourable member Ms Wall has observed, supporting a 2020 purchase age. And I argued for this in the House, Mr Chair. Sadly, the motion was lost. A huge opportunity lost, in my opinion, but that is democracy. I know that the Manurewa community and communities the length and breadth of the country will be delighted with this legislation in Part 3 of the bill, which empowers local communities to create their own alcohol plan. The when, where and how regarding licensed premises. Communities will have more important decisions. Local authorities will be able to limit the sale of alcohol and set conditions on licences. Councils will be able to develop local alcohol policies to determine the trading hours of licensed premises, limit location and density of licences and impose conditions on these licences. They can take into account the proximity of schools, early childhood education centres and other community assets such as parks when forming their local alcohol policies. Further, Clause 100, which contains the criteria in the bill for the issue of licences, is clear. Clause 101C, Mr Chair, requires that when deciding whether to issue a licence, the licensing authority or the licensing committee concerned must have regard to any local alcohol policy. We would hope that would be the case. Under 101H, whether in its opinion the amenity and good order of the locality would be likely to be reduced by more than a minor extent by the effects of the issue of the licence. 100A1B requires the consideration of the extent to which the following purposes are compatible: the purpose of which land near the premises concerned is used and the purpose for which those premises will be used if the licence is issued. Fundamentally then, Mr Chair, this bill broadens the matters that must be considered in licence decision-making and also affords a greater opportunity for members of the community to object to a licence application. In the absence of a local alcohol plan, a national default mechanism of maximum hours exists. These are 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. for off licences and 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for on licences. To me, these provisions seem overly generous, and I would expect many communities to ensure they formulate their own local alcohol policy to reduce the availability of alcohol in their own communities as they see fit. I applaud this local alcohol policy provision in the Alcohol Law Reform Bill and am sure it has the potential to lead to significant reduction in alcohol-related harms in our community.
I call the honourable member